Hello and welcome to the Sales for the Nigerian Business Person podcast. It's available on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple iTunes, or any podcast player of your choice. So subscribe for free once you're done listening to this episode. Yes, even if you have Apple iTunes, you can listen to podcast episodes for free, even if you have to pay for the music. And when you're done, please give me a 5-star review because all your peers so far listening across all platforms have only given me 5-star reviews. I haven't got a 4, I haven't got a 3, only 5s. So, today on the show, for those of you who've been listening for the last maybe week and a half, you remember that I spoke about an institution based in India called Edoofa. They are should I say, a student education program? No, not education. What's that word? Student. Is it, these kinds of institutions that take people from one location to another. International exchange, yes. So they're a student international exchange program, and they get people off of the African continent and expose them to a world-class education on their campuses in India. Now, Edoofa is trying to take advantage of the fact that India is the outsourcing capital in the world, of the world. So what they do is they take people from Nigeria, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Malawi, you name it, whatever African country. You go there and expose them to a world-class education. And just like those of us who happen to school in the United Kingdom or in America or wherever, these people get a chance to work. But unlike those of us who worked in the UK and in America and who have to get, regular 9 to 5 office desk type jobs or whatever, the people in going through the program with the Edoofa in India get to have jobs where, even though they're based in India, they get to work for international clientele. And that's because of all the outsourcing that is going on over there in India. So they get to work remote for different countries all over the globe. I mean, working for their countries at home, or whether for the UK or Switzerland or whatever. So that's the whole idea behind the program. And Edoofa and I have partnered up on a couple of webinars for the month of September 2023. I've already made a podcast summary on one of those episodes, and this is the second summary episode. So that for those, so that for those Edoofians, as they're called, those are students who are passing through the program in India. So that Edoofians who weren't able to be a part of the seminar will be able to get a sense of the things that we discussed. And even for those who are a part of the seminar but weren't able to take notes fast enough, because yes, I know sometimes I talk really fast and breeze through things, they will have this here as an audio summary that they can use for all time. And of course, I'm sharing this here again with those of you on the podcast so that you can get a sense of the things that we discussed, even though, technically speaking, the session was only available to people who are at student level, people trying to learn stuff, undergraduate programs, and, those sorts of people. So the last session that we did was a little outside of my, my wheelhouse, my house of expertise, and it was on critical thinking and problem-solving skills, how to become the wisest person in the room. Now, of course, I didn't bulk from the topic because, for those of you who've been listening to this podcast for a very long time, you know my opinion that a lot of business problems and life problems can be solved by sales skills and business development skills because when you think in a sales or business development mindset, there are certain skills that you have to acquire, problem-solving skills, a way of thinking, a way of handling problems that translate into most endeavors that the average person is going to be involved in. And so when this topic came across my email, I figured it's not a problem. I can handle it because sales and business development has something to say about almost everything. Anyway, so my approach with handling this webinar, like I do with most of my material, was to question the assumptions behind the questions, to tease out the issues involved, try and synthesize the issues so that at the end of the day, we're left with one holistic framework that people can apply all the time. And of course, the goal is to keep it easy to remember, because I don't want people to have to refer to notebooks or have to memorize things. I want it to be easy to remember. I want people to be able to see how easy the pieces fit together. And if we can do that, then the greater the chance that people are going to execute on the things that we talk about, which is the approach that I have over here on the podcast. So, yeah, the old audio summary is available over here on the podcast for Edoofians who didn't listen to the last one. And if you're done listening to this one and you'd like to see what we discussed the last time, then go ahead and have a look. And I will move into the crux of the question now on critical thinking and problem solving skills. Just one moment, I have to pause and go attend to something. I'll be back in a jiffy. Okay, I am back. Sorry for that brief pause. I had to go and attend to something. All right, anyway, I'm back. That's the bottom line. So, we are looking at the question critical thinking and problem solving skills. How to become the wisest person in the room. Now, the first part of the question that I'd like to tackle is which room? Now, because I'm talking to the Edoofians, you will see that they are in their journey that they're going to have through life and through the education that they're getting right now. They're going to pass through several rooms like most of us, and I want to show that the skills that we're going to look at in critical thinking and problem solving skills apply to a wide variety of settings that we all have to pass through. So I've been out of the classroom for a while, and I'm sure that most of you listening to the podcast are currently out of the classroom, although I think close to about 6% of podcast listeners are between the ages of 18 and I think 24. But the Edoofians right now, currently, they have to be passing through the classroom because they are students. And they're going to be concerned about academic and technical proficiency. And the skills of critical thinking and problem solving are very useful when it comes to being on top of things academically, and also being able to be sure that you can apply the knowledge that you gain in all your endeavors. So you can use critical thinking and problem solving skills to become the smartest person in the classroom. That's achievable. Then another room that the Edoofians have to inhabit is the client consultation meeting. Now remember that even though they are physically based in India, they are doing lots of remote work for people across the globe. And there is no way that you can do work for someone in another part of the country. Let's say you are South African currently doing some remote work for a Nigerian company, or you are from Zimbabwe doing remote work for a Scandinavian company. There's no how that you can do the work, go through on all your deliverables, unless you understand the client specs, you understand the problems, you understand the needs, you understand the vision that they're working towards. And it's only when you understand what the problem is and you get the data from that that you can now apply the appropriate skill set. And then you can be the smartest person in the room if you're having the client consultation meeting, because you have to be smarter than the client, at least when it comes to that tiny little problem that you're trying to help them solve. The example that I gave with the Edoofians was someone who is trying to solve marketing challenges for somebody in France. Yes, I think that's the example that I gave. If nothing else, you have to be the expert when it comes to Google advertising, SEO, what else, copywriting, all those sorts of things. If you're trying to help a client in France solve problems around selling bread in his bakery. Another room that Edoofians have to pass through is the boardroom, because eventually Edoofians, when they finish with this program, they go back to their countries, they're going to own their own businesses, or they're going to work for someone else's businesses. Some of them might be engaged in public sector services back home, and they're going to need to have effective decision-making skills. So critical thinking, problem solving comes in handy there. It wouldn't hurt to be one of the smartest people in the boardroom when you are working on your own business and someone else's business, or you're trying to run public sector affairs back home. Then another room in which these skills are important is the community meeting, because some of us in this part of the world, Nigerians, South Africans, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Kenya, Where else? Sorry, forgive me if I'm calling only certain countries from certain parts of Africa. Yeah, that's true. I should include Sudan and Chad and the folks up north as well. So in this part of the world, a lot of us are involved in, community and family stuff, or we have NGOs and charities because we're worried about communal development initiatives, those sorts of things. Because we all come from big families, we might be doing okay in the urban center, but we still have families back at home in the villages, rural communities. I know that Indians also have those sorts of challenges too, and so. Yeah, we live in the cities or we might live international, but we always have one hand back home or an eye back at home just to be sure that people in the larger clan seem to be doing okay. So it'll help critical thinking, problem solving skills so that we can get impactful and systemic decision making processes. So we need to be smart there as well. Excuse me. Now, the final room that I mentioned, and the one that some Edoofians showed some interest in, was the political caucus, the political room, where we're trying to manage people of different interests. Of course, we're not. This is not something new to us. Those of us on the African continent, where we're in rooms where we're trying to do horse trading, negotiate different interests across different ethnicities, different communities, things like that. We're all trying to look for what the common good is. We're trying to align people's different political interests, and we're trying to move the nation forward. So there were some Edufians who picked up on that. Not surprisingly, because on the African continent, we still have, well, there's no part of the world where they have sorted out all these issues in an ideal fashion. But on the African continent, we still have some work to do. So, with the help to use critical thinking and problem solving skills to be a smart person in the room to make sure that we're able to achieve our goals of coming together as a country. So, the next part of the question that I tackled was, what is wisdom? Now, wisdom has different connotations depending on whether you're talking philosophy or whether you're talking business. Now, in philosophy, when people talk wisdom, they mean we're looking for truth, we're looking for knowledge, we're looking for beauty, we're looking for ethics, morals, right living, all that transcendental stuff, things that go beyond the day-to-day of living, just to make sure that we're oriented to rather, the right ends of life and the highest goals of life. But when we're talking about the business context, we're just thinking about stuff that is good, stuff that is bad, what is expedient, and what is the most effective course of action to take when we're trying to make business decisions. So, philosophy is really highfalutin and transcendental. But then when it's business, we're really trying to answer very few questions. What is good? What is the bad course to take? What would be the wrong course of action to take, rather? What is the expedient thing to do? And what is the most effective course of action? And of course, when we're talking about community and politics, those are the same sorts of considerations that we're looking at. What's good? What's bad? What's expedient? What would be effective? And we need to figure out what these are and how they apply to our clients, to our businesses, to the offices that we work in, to the communities that we work in, to the government. If we're part of government back home, we need to be able to tease out some of these issues. And that is why critical thinking and problem solving skills become really important. Then another question that I looked at, what is critical thinking? Okay, now and we also looked at that from two different perspectives: the business or human organization perspective, and then trying to sort out critical paths when we're trying to work on business, and then other things. So, like I said, when we're dealing with businesses and human organizations, we're looking at a small set of issues. What is good, what is bad, what is expedient, and what is effective course of action. We've already spoken about that. But then there's this idea of the business critical path. Or rather, in business, there's something called the critical path, and I think it applies to any other project that you are working on. Now, for those of you who are into project management, maybe you study project management in school or you have project management certifications, you are familiar with this idea of the business critical path or the project critical path. Now, the critical path is, or rather, the critical path are those action points or those events that if we miss them, If we botch them up, then the project is going to fail entirely. And the example that I gave for the Edoofians was residential buildings. And the moment I said that, they could relate, and some of the Indian facilitators also could relate as well. In fact, one of them said, building falls down. Because, well, yes, we've had those mishaps. Not too many in Abuja. We've had a couple in Lagos. We see them on the news every now and then. But you get the point. If you mess up the foundation, the building is going to fall. If you get the foundation right, but then you get the superstructure of the building wrong, then it is going to cause problems. So the foundation, the getting the superstructure of the business, that's the middle part where you put all the frames and floors and things like that, the decking. If you go wrong in any of these critical parts, then the project ultimately fails or has serious defects. So to use critical thinking and problem solving skills, we should be trying to figure out what the critical paths are for our clients, for our communities, for whatever projects that we're working on, and to make sure that we nail those critical paths, that we get them right. And for the examples that I gave for for the Edoofians, if I remember, I think I ran through two examples, one in a business context and I think one in a community development context. So for business, back to the example that I gave, you're trying to help a client you're based in India because you're doing your Edoofa studies, and the client is a bakery in France and they're trying to sell more bread. And they reach out to you and they say, dear Edoofian, this is my problem. I want to sell more bread. Come up with wonderful copy that I can use on my Instagram or my website that will help me sell more bread. Now, when you're faced with that problem, you have to think of what the business critical paths are. First of all, this is a marketing problem, so you have to be thinking in marketing terms, what the critical parts are. And one of those foundational elements is the ICP, the ideal customer profile or the ideal client profile. So you want to be sure that you have the right client in mind in the first place. Because if the business owner has a certain kind of client in mind, but then your copy is addressed to another kind of client, then whatever it is that you craft for him with the Facebook advertisement, with the website copy, with the LinkedIn post, or, okay, no, you can't use LinkedIn post to sell bread. Anyway, you get the point. Whatever it is that you come up with is going to lead to poor sales and poor bad result because you have missed something that is important in the critical path, which is the ICP, the ideal customer profile, or the ideal target audience, or the avatar, or whatever it is that people call it in your country and in your industry. So those are the sorts of things you'll be trying to figure out. And another example that I gave was for community development, and where, let's say, you're trying to bring potable water to your community back home, because there are some of us that come from villages where we do not have rivers running close to the community. So trying to get water actually can be a hassle. And I know that our brethren in India also go through some of those problems as well. So from a community development angle, you're trying to bring potable water to the community. And the critical path in this case should be trying to figure out the water table. Is there a water table in the community, and how adequate is it? Sorry, forgive me, I'm running from memory, but I think the water table, that's supposed to be like the platform of water or the reservoir of water, the body of water that flows underground in most communities. So before you sink a well or before you sink a borehole, you want to be sure that there's a water table underneath the community. If you don't do that part of the job first, that is the critical path, and you start digging all over the place, then you're going to end up with a couple of things. Number one, you might dig holes all over the ground and find out that there is no water. So the first thing to do actually should be that feasibility part where you're trying to figure out if there's a water table in the community. You might also figure out that there's a water table, but because of the depth of the water table, the project now becomes not feasible. Let's say the community can only raise, let me speak in Naira terms. Let's say the community can only raise 500,000 Naira, but because of the depth of the water table, maybe you're going to need 1.2 million Naira to get there. Then the community is still 700,000 Naira short. And if you had started digging without doing the feasibility work to find out where the water table is, then now you have started the community off on this project that they don't have enough money to complete. The project might be too expensive. These are some of the challenges that you might run through if you don't start trying to figure out from the beginning what are the critical paths that we need to hit. We need to figure those out first of all, because that is what will determine if and how you continue with the rest of the project. So, what are the critical thinking and problem solving skills that we need to have? The skills that we need to figure out the critical parts. Now, there are two essential skills that we need to have that I told the Edoofians. Number one, we need to have subject matter expertise, and we need to have interrogation skills. Interrogation skills is just another way of saying, excuse me, I have a cold. It's that time of the year. The rains are here. The kids are back at school, and then they come back and they bring all kinds of bugs. So, yeah, so the cold is making its way around my household at the moment. So, what was I? Yeah, so the skills needed to figure out key critical parts, the subject matter expertise, and then interrogation skills, asking people questions. Now, subject matter expertise, that is what Edoofians are currently getting right now. They're going through their studies in India and they're learning a whole bunch of things around business and the community and all kinds of things. They're getting a world class education. So, in this case, back to the bread example, the person who wants to sell bread in France and who has reached out to Edoofa to provide students to solve the problem. In this case, subject matter expertise when dealing with a business client means that since you're trying to figure out marketing problems, it means that the Edoofian who is selected for the job needs to be the expert or have a very good or a very competent working knowledge of sales and marketing or merchandising or copywriting or website design or Facebook advertising. I mean, you get the whole point. You need to be the expert. Even if you're not the expert, you need to be reasonably competent in these sorts of things. So, excuse me. That's the first part, subject matter expertise. Then the excuse me, the next part is interrogation skills. Sorry, one moment. Okay, sorry, I'm back. I need to take a cup of water, clear my throat. Okay, so interrogation skills and asking questions. Okay, so now the whole point of interrogation skills is this. When we're trying to solve problems in the business or trying to solve problems in the community or trying to solve problems in the polity, in the country overall, we're trying to figure out, number one, if we're talking to the right people. Because if we're talking to the wrong people, all the information that we get is going to be wrong and all the data that we get is going to be wrong and we're going to end up solving the wrong problems. So we need to be sure that we're talking to the right people. So for the bakery in France, we need to be sure that we're talking to someone that can give us an adequate idea of who the ideal target audience is in the first place. Because if we're in touch with the bakery, but we're talking to the accounting person, and all the accounting person knows is the profit and loss and all that, but they don't know all the marketing details that we need. The people who are buying the bread, is it people who are local? Is it tourists or is it people from different provinces in France? What kind of business is it? Is it mostly walk-ins or do they sell the bread by people placing orders online and then you send out to other people? If we're not talking to someone who can provide us with all this information, then by default, chances are we're going to make the wrong choice. Then okay, so we have to try and figure out if we're talking to the right people. The next thing that we want to do is we want to be sure that we're using open-ended questions and we're keeping things conversational. Yes, I know I called it interrogation skills, but really, if you interrogate anybody, most people will stop talking because nobody likes being interrogated. So we have to be using open-ended conversational skills. And the goal of that is to try and figure out the facts on ground so that we can now apply the knowledge that we have from our subject matter expertise. So if I'm talking to the right person, in this case, let's say I'm talking to the baker owner, or I'm talking to the person who handles marketing, websites, customer service, or whatever for the baker, I need to be sure that now I'm asking questions in an open conversational way so that I can get all the facts that I need, all the information that I need to solve the problem and come up with a very good advertising campaign or copy for the website or whatever it is that we need to solve the problem for that business. Now, from a sales and business development perspective, there are very simple, easy frameworks that people have traditionally used. And that is one that I've spoken about on the podcast in the past, where you ask yourself the simple questions: who, what, why, when, and how. So you're asking the marketing person. Of course, remember, this is supposed to be conversational, so you don't just list out a bunch of questions. You ask one question, and then you pause. You keep quiet. You let the person talk. The person will say a bunch of stuff. You get to ask some follow-up questions before you move on to the next. The next. So, who is your ideal customer? Who buys from you guys the most? What is the best selling season for your bread? Is it winter, summer, tourism season? Let's see. What else? What makes your bread better than all the other bakers in the province? Why do you guys think you have a marketing problem? When did you notice that this problem started? How is it that you've been measuring success or satisfaction from your clients so far? Who are your best customers? How much do they buy? Those sorts of things. The questions can go on and on and on. But we need these sorts of questions to give us all the information that we need so that we can now apply our subject matter expertise when it comes to sales and marketing and merchandising and copywriting, so that we can give them the best copy for their website, for their Instagram handle or whatever. Then another framework is the 5 whys, which is when you ask the question, people give an answer, and then you say why. So back to the baker example, you ask the person, who is your best, who are your best customers, and the person says that, our best customers are people who come during the people who come from Africa during the tourism season. Those are our best customers. And then you ask them why. And then they have to think and go a level deep to give an answer to that question, because it's possible, that they think that is their ideal target base. But then if you ask a couple of questions, you'll find out that their ideal customer base is actually another group of people that you should be targeting with your advertising. So you ask them, why do they think so? They'll give you an answer. You ask them another why, they'll give another answer. You ask them another why. Now, it might seem annoying if all you do is just say why. So you don't have to say why exactly, but you get the whole point. You're trying to ask open-ended questions to get a level deeper to understand why they think the information that they've given you is the right information. So these are just simple techniques that don't require you to know a bunch. They become much more effective in the problem solving process when you're trying to solve problems for your clients. You're trying to figure out the situation with their businesses now. You're trying to figure out what their customers have enjoyed in the past. You're trying to figure out alternatives that they have tried to try and solve their problem, and you're trying to look at what the best decisions might be. So that's the whole point. If you're dealing with someone in the business context who wants to sell bread in France, that's the approach. For the community, it's also the same thing. Before you start talking to the water table, you want to be sure that you're speaking to the right person, because it might be troublesome if you walk into the community, you want to solve the water problems, but then you're talking to a warrant chief, that is a lower level chief, instead of talking to the paramount chief. That might make a difference. Who were you talking to in the community? What levels of authority do they have? Because that will also determine the kind of permission that you have to go around freely in the village, asking other people more questions, and also getting permission to start digging holes in people's compounds, because you're trying to figure out where the water table is. So all these things are important. So you need to be sure that we're talking to the right person, try and figure out when their water problems started, what solutions that they have tried. Let's say they have sunk some wells before. You need to figure out, okay, the wells and the boreholes that you guys sunk in the past, why didn't they work? Can I have a look at them? Let's try and figure out what the problem is. So all of these things are absolutely essential. And so you can see that these simple frameworks, number one, am I talking to the right person? And then number two, Am I having simple, open-ended conversations to get me all the information that I need to solve the problems? You can see how these greatly affect the success rate or the failure rate of whether we're going to be able to get this thing to work. So, because I have already made reference to the case study that I did for the Edoofians at the end of the session, I'm not going to do that right now because we're already at the 30 minute mark. Okay, I can't remember why I chose only a commercial case study because I should have looked for something in community. Okay, yes, well, I also did community development. Yes, the water table that I've been making reference to. Okay, so I guess there's nothing else to refer to. I think I've captured pretty much everything that we spoke about. And this is how you can be the smartest person in the room by using critical thinking and problem solving skills. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated, especially when you're looking at things from a sales and business development perspective. We want to be sure that we're talking to the right people. We want to be sure that we're asking the right kind of questions that gives us the right data so that we can apply our subject matter expertise towards coming up with the right solution. So, when you do this, you will indeed be a valuable person in your business, in your community, in your family, in your school, in your wherever you are, and you will be one of the more smarter people in the room, and that's because they know that when you're there, you're able to bring critical thinking and effective problem solving skills to get the job done. So that's all for today, folks. The summary for the Edoofians. Now, if you love what you've been hearing on the podcast, then hit me up on 080-6466-2140 for business support and sales training and coaching for your staff, where we focus on techniques and strategies and mindset shifts that can help drive revenue growth. That's for those of you who are regular listeners of the podcast. For those of you who are Edoofians, of course, you know what the next step you have to take is. Make some notes. Mentors have already been assigned to you. Any more questions, ask your mentors. We're going to have another webinar session on the 22nd of September, if I remember correctly. And for questions that you have that your mentors have been able to address, but you want a different perspective on, then that's going to be the avenue where I will answer all those questions. So that's it for today. Thank you guys very much for your time and your attention. I'll catch you guys at the next episode. That's for those of you who are regular podcast listeners. And for the Edoofians listening to this summary, I'll catch you again in 1 week on the 22nd.